Okay, so 2 white men pissed me off this morning, which is pretty normal for me. Actually, that's a little bit low, but only these 2 in particular I felt like talking about on this video. And they were both self-proclaimed leftists and revolutionaries who say that they have the betterment of our world in mind and they want to help move into the future. All right, let's see how you're going to do that. The first one was talking about how revolution is built and these systems are built that will help us move into the future, and that we should look at the past at successful revolutions and how those were built. And he said the most important one was America. And that we should look to how that coalition, that sense of cooperation had helped us stay together, and that even though there was a civil war and all of these conflicts, we had managed to stay together for 250 years, and that we should base anything that we do in the future on that model. Okay. The coalition of the revolutionary movement in America was a bunch of powerful landed gentry from England who had money and had estates, who owned human beings as if they had a right to do that, who were building a country on the blood of the genocide of the indigenous people who lived here before, on an economy that required the kidnapping and enslavement, the torture, the murder, the experimenting on, the rape of people from Africa. And they built it by compromising and building coalition with one another, making high-level power agreements between one another, and the tokens that they traded to make those agreements, you narcissistic white man, were lives. The lives of the enslaved people from Africa, the lives of the indigenous people who lived here, the lives of poor whites, the lives of other immigrant groups, the lives of women, the lives of children. They were willing to say, you give me this bit of power, you back me on this, you sign up with me on this, you stand with me in this fight, that you can have effectively this much power to destroy lives, to own people, to abuse people, to take and exploit anything that you want from those people, because they're not us. They're not the powerful, white, and wealthy. And you think that the very fucking revolutionary coalition that got us right here, right now, where at every turn, every single time we could have had something better, powerful, wealthy, almost exclusively white men, have made compromises and built coalition and made agreements with each other to keep the union together on the backs of other human beings who will suffer as a direct result. You think that's how we're going to build something in the future? I'm going to go ahead and say no to that. And then the other guy that pissed me off, the other white guy that pissed me off, with self-proclaimed leftist, talking about how the Democratic National Convention, or the Democratic Party's, super secret autopsy of the 2024 election, and that a large part of it was about Palestine. And don't get me wrong, that's a fucking genocide by a genocidal colonial government that is working in cooperation with our colonial genocidal government to kill people, to just wipe them all out, to steal their land. It's a fucking issue, yes. But he said that that was the issue, and that was why he felt justified, that leftists like him felt justified in working against putting Harris in, working against voting for the lesser of two evils, because the Biden-Harris administration, as with all of our government administrations since the beginning of that genocidal colonizing country in 1948, had worked with and they were complicit. They were co-conspirators. And so they didn't deserve to be in power. And left hanging any criticism of the regime that is actually in power right now as a direct result. No criticism for the current government that we have squatting in our halls of power that isn't just co-conspirator or complicit with that genocidal colonizing country, but enthusiastically participating, taking all of the tactics that have worked over there to commit a genocide against the people of Palestine and using it against us. So, no critique for them. But the Dems didn't deserve to be in power. So does this fucking criminal cartel of sociopaths, bigots, racists, transphobes, pedophiles, do they deserve to be in power more? Or is it just that you had to be right? You had to be right that the Dems they weren't pure enough. Even though had they been in power, they might actually be swayable. They actually might possibly have some people who could do some good if they had that power. They might be susceptible to pressure from a few million angry Americans. And we might not have concentration camps on our soil. We might not have mass deportations. We might not have children being kidnapped and separated and trafficked and confined. We might not have an uptick in lynchings of black men. We might not have ICE in the street the way we do now. We might not have the rollback of rights for trans people just to exist. We might not have doctors reporting miscarriages so that women who are experiencing one of the worst losses in their lives will go to jail. We might not have a regime of pedophiles and pedophile protectors. Like all of them in our White House right now. But you had to be right. You had to be justified. You had to sell your outrage about how the Dems weren't good enough. They weren't doing enough. They had too much AIPAC money coming in. And where was and is your criticism for this regime that by default got the power? Why are y'all still picketing Kamala Harris's fucking book appearances and not Mar-a-Lago? Well, we want her to admit she was wrong. Okay, what's that going to get the rest of us? What is that going to get women who are in jail for miscarrying? What is that going to get trans people who are afraid to get their medication because they might be reported by a medical professional to the state and then sent off to some fucking camp? What does that get children who are protesting and exercising their First Amendment rights, who are being tackled and choked by sheriffs and then locked up in jail all weekend? How does that help the immigrants dying in concentration camps that we are paying for? How does that help Palestine? Okay, I'm calm. I'm going to go back to work. But when moving forward, whether it's voting or being influenced or consuming content or looking for answers to how we're going to fix this shit, 3 factors I want you to take into consideration in a candidate, in just a voice of reason, in somebody that you should look at to be a trusted voice. 3 things I want you to always look for: white, male, and Christian. If they're one of those things, okay, maybe. Let's see what you got. Prove to me that you're a reasonable person. Prove to me you've done the work. If they've got 2 of those things, fucking askance. You will be looking side-eye the living shit out of them. Look into everything that they say. Question everything. If they have all 3, that's how we fucking got here. Anyway, to everybody else, I love you. Stay angry. Take care of each other. Stay safe. We'll talk soon.